Okay guys, welcome back to another podcast. This week I am joined with a very special but very well known guest in the form of Jack Thorburn. As you guys have known, Jack has been on the podcast a couple of times already. We've chatted the first time when he was as a junior, and then the second time was in 2017 when we were both prepping, of which people followed eagerly, and I'm pretty sure people are waiting until we both prep again. But this podcast itself is going to be more of a Q&A based episode just with Jack. So I'll obviously chime in at certain points, which I think my opinion is also wanted. But for the most part, this is an opportunity to get basically like a solo podcast with Thorburn, which I'm pretty sure people are really wanting, and as the comment section on YouTube demanded it. So when people demand something, I give it to them. So for first things first, I think people would like a bit of an update on where things are at with you, Jack, especially with regards to what your current mindset is on, beginning to returning to the stage in the future, where you're currently at in your off season, and just sort of give people a bit of an idea as to what's going on at the moment.
Okay, so I'm sure plenty of you know from me posting on Instagram that I've got a few. They're not necessarily injuries, but a few issues on the go at the moment. A lot of it stems from muscle imbalances and tightnesses that I had about 6-7 years ago, but didn't know about it at the time, and it's just led to like a few postural issues and things like that. That sort of started to kick in about 2 years ago when I was prepping with yourself. And I managed to drag myself through the 2017 season, just about getting to the stage in one piece. What it leads to is almost like an inability to contract the muscle the way it should be, kind of thing. It's very hard to explain. I'm spending a lot of money and a lot of hours getting fixed up because basically my body will want to shift back to the old ways, so I have to continue to put it right, basically.
Sure.
So at the moment, it's just a process of sorting that out. So my body almost needs to relearn how to move. That may sound stupid to people, but for years it was almost a struggle to walk upstairs, despite me doing numerous hours on the Stairmaster. But so where I'm at right now is in the mix of sorting that out whilst doing my best to maintain a reasonable sort of physique. I still do everything I need to be doing, but training's not 100%. Just I try and do what I can, but the intensity's not as high as I'd like it. Food wise, I'm definitely in a surplus, but I think it's probably quite a modest one, to be honest, because I've managed to stay in it for near enough
A long time.
Yeah, a long time, about 18 months at least.
Yeah.
At least 18 months.
Yeah.
And yes, I am fluffy, but I never hold abs. I lose my abs within. I lost my abs in a 2-month off season before. And I still have cuts in my legs, but they're always there. So I think in that regards, I've done quite well. I'm not pushing the food because, to be honest, I've got no right to push the food. Training's not the intensity to deserve it. So for now, I'm focusing more on getting that sorted whilst keeping in a surplus because, when you're dieting, you're not putting yourself in a good position to rehab injuries and stuff like that, which is why me doing that contest prep in 2017 wasn't doing me any favours. But I still loved it. Plans for the future, competing wise, I almost love the prep more than the show itself. So obviously I really want to compete again, and I will compete again. It's just getting these injuries sorted, because where I'm at now, yes, I have lost a bit of muscle. Where I'm at now for me to compete again, I need to beat previous of what I've attained. I'm not going to turn up. I could potentially look at an easy show and maybe snag a qualification through that But then I'm going to do, at this stage where I'm at now, I'm not going to do any damage at finals. But for me, I have to progress. So for me, the next stage is to do well, potentially win a class at finals. So for me to do that, I need to, first of all, get the injury sorted and then look to build back up what I've lost and more then. So that's sort of where I'm at. With summer coming up, not that I'm really that bothered. I do want to do a somewhat of a tidy up shortly. So that might look at maybe the end of March.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Somewhat of a 8-week body power prep maybe. Rapid fat loss.
Fuck's sake.
But yeah, maybe something along those lines, because I am aware that I can't stay. To be honest, I probably could stay in a surplus if I did it sensibly, but it's not really that optimal. So it's probably a little bit of a tidy up due, and I'm sure plenty of people will be interested in me documenting that anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a bit refreshing, because it's at the moment it's just the same. Even though I am a robot with these things.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, even as you said, even the oats are starting to slightly lose their appeal a little bit.
That's big words from you, mate. That's big fucking words.
Maybe it's the bagels certainly have, mate. I tell you what, I eat those and I'm not even bothered about eating them. But yeah, anyway, enough about food. Yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Would you say the injury at the moment is it improving? Because it seems to be, from what you're saying on Instagram, that things are certainly getting better and moving in a better direction.
I definitely say they're improving. It's just a very long progression, because at the moment, training used to hurt. Like, it actually physically hurt, but I'd still do it anyway because I'm too stubborn.
Yeah.
It never hurts now. Like,
good.
Like, for example, I trained legs yesterday, and previously my hips would have been in agony after training legs, whereas now there's no issue with that at all. So I've got that sort of sorted. Now I need to, as I mentioned earlier, it's almost about relearning how to train. Like, if you were personal training a newbie, and you ask them, can you feel this muscle working? They might not feel that muscle, but to us who's trained for a while, we can connect with it instantly. It's almost like I have to relearn these sort of patterns now. So
sure,
it's definitely making progress. It's just mentally it's tough, because I always want to see it progressing linearly, but it's not going to happen like that. I'm not going to have 6 good days a week every day.
No. But
the problem is sometimes I let the one bad day overshadow 5 good days. But it's definitely moving forward, so I'm happy in that regard.
Good. Well, that's good news, man. So yeah, that's, I think, a little bit of a nice update on where Jack's at. So unfortunately, guys, we don't have a date for his return to the stage. That won't be released, I don't think. But
I might jump on stage at Body Power. Who knows?
Fuck's sake. But I think what that teaches us is that, despite all of Jack's issues and problems that he's got, he's not throwing the pan in because of just one issue. It's like, if anything, I think what it shows is that it's probably making you want to nail every other single variable that you can control, even more so. So, like, taking all the little, and this is something I think people need to learn about yourself, is that I mean, even if everything was perfect, you'd still be the individual that would nail fucking everything. But the thing is, like, not many people are like Jack, in the sense that you want to nail every single little tiny variable, and you don't want to just do it, over a month. You want to do it over 18. Like, if you were to ask someone how, like, whether you've missed a meal over that 18-month off season, you haven't. And
I couldn't tell you the last time I missed a meal. Like, it's been 5, 6 years. Easy.
Yeah. There's very, very few like you, in the sense like that, and that also means that when someone sees the way that you do things, take that with a pinch of salt, because this person might not be even getting in the gym consistently and tracking their lifts or doing anything on a very basic ground level. So don't go from, like, someone who's just trying to get started in training to a Jack Thorburn in, like, 1 month, because you're gonna fucking burn out quicker than you can say Quaker oats. So yeah, let's get stuck into some of these questions.
Where did that come from?
Fucks. I don't know. It's just relevant.
Oats on your mind.
So yeah, let's get into some of these questions from Instagram. Good questions, guys. Like I've got pages and pages of questions, so we'll go through some of them. I'll go from the start up to the people that got in the quickest. We've covered already the one from Blair, which was asking about when you're going to step on stage. I thought that we'd cover quite a few of these. So actually, one of my old clients asked, have you ever had an exertion-based headache, and how did you personally relieve it, if you've had one? I think you must have had one. The way that you train, you must have had something pop.
Yeah, but nothing that's sort of...
Nothing debilitating.
Nothing that's lasted.
Okay, sure.
You had...
Oh, yeah. I've had it twice now.
Days and weeks.
Yeah, it was weeks.
I never get... The only thing is, this links back to the injury. Because I'm so stubborn, and when I used to struggle to feel contractions, this was years ago, I always knew something was wrong, so I would do whatever I could to try and get something to work. Yeah. So if I felt that I was in the right position and whatever was working, I would hold my breath and ensure that nothing changed, so that I didn't lose that sort of position. Sure. So stuff like that used to not be great. Also, when I used to practice my vacuums, and I that would be like a minute holding that, and I would like collapse on the floor. But that's like not. To be honest, no. But I think a lot of it will be down to your breathing.
It is.
It's all to do with that. I think it's all to do with down breathing.
It is. Really. It's all to do with your breathing.
Yeah, and then also tensing through your sort of neck area there. Yeah. So which is then also links to your breathing, because if your chest breathing, you're tensing up through your traps, stuff like that. So it's focusing on, diaphragmatic breathing as well. I don't want to get too hippie with it, but breathing through there, because that's where you're getting all your stability from, is there, not up here. Yeah. So that's going to help with the sort of headache issues, I think.
Yeah, sure. I'd agree with that one completely. So Plamen asked, dealing with contest preps in terms of, I know your answer to this one, like missing certain foods. So would you miss any foods that you'd be having in the off season? Would you have cravings? How do you deal with them? And how do you deal, and this is going to be an interesting one for you as well, how do you deal with the higher hunger levels that exist in a caloric deficit? Because I know your answers to both of these.
First of all, with regards missing foods, I've got two prep examples here. So my first prep, as soon as I went into a contest, this was the first time I ever competed. First time I went into my contest season, I went full-blown keto, so dropped all carbs. Yeah. So, as you can imagine, to someone who loves oats as much as myself, I think I actually did cry. Like, I actually cried. And I actually forgot how to make oats when I actually got them back in the diet. But I did 16 weeks on 27 grams of carbs. But for me, and then if we're using the second example, 2017, I actually didn't really remove any foods that I liked, really. Yeah. 2 weeks out from finals, I was still eating oats, bagels, jam. Yeah. So there's no need for you really to be, unless you're at the dog end of prep, you should be able to prep on most of the foods you like. It's going to be reduced volume. Yeah. But then again, I'm not a massive advocate of artificial sweeteners. I used to go through a lot. When I was doing that keto diet, I was going through, I don't know if you've ever had them, do you know the Walden Farms?
Yeah, I have. They're all good.
The coffee creamers, have you had those?
No, I haven't had those ones, no.
Oh my God. The mocha is actually like just pure chocolate syrup. Wow. So I would go through a bottle of it every 2 to 3 days,
Yeah.
and I'd smash 3 coffees just so I could pour it in because it was like drinking chocolate.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'm a massive chocoholic, even though I haven't had chocolate in 10 years. Yeah, I haven't had a bar of chocolate or anything like that for 10 years. But all of my supplements, so my protein powders, they're all of like a sweet or chocolate nature.
Yeah.
So that's where I get my sort of chocolate fix from. So use little hacks like that so you can, you know, in your oats or like yourself, the sludge, as it's known. But like, I can actually make that taste as equally as nice as any chocolate bar. You know, the technology we've got now, the flavorings they've got, you don't need to sort of cheat on your diet for a chocolate bar when you can have protein sludge, for example.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
and then with regards hunger, I don't know whether I'm an anomaly or maybe it's the higher protein diet. Who knows? Who knows? Smoke
Frog
face.
emoji.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can stick that right there. But I honestly have never had any hunger issues during a contest phase, like ever.
Yeah.
The only time I can ever remember being hungry was when I got stuck in a traffic jam on the way home from the gym, and I hadn't eaten for like 7, 8 hours, something like that. But that's it.
Wow.
Honestly, the whole contest phase, I never got hungry. And yes, that probably is linked to my higher protein diet.
Yeah.
At the same time, my calories never got that low. 2,300, I
Sure.
think, was the lowest it got.
Yeah, that's not low at all.
Protein at no point dropped below 300 grams, I may add. But um, yeah, and at the same time, there's a big mindset issue here as well. I think a lot of people that suffer with hunger are the ones that aren't doing an awful lot. So
Not busy.
they're actively sat thinking about it.
Yeah,
At the
agreed.
time, I was working in retail, and I didn't have a second to think really. I was always thinking about something else. So I think that's another issue as well. If you're thinking about it and you're almost accepting that you're hungry, I think that's another issue as well. So try and put it on the back burners. And at the end of the day, you're not really that hungry, are you? Let's put it in the context of things.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, good answer on that one for sure. Robert asks about protein. He asks, can we consume too much daily? And what would you say is the maximum amount of protein that you'd suggest to have in a meal, per meal?
Obviously, you can consume too much protein, but then again, any excess protein that you are consuming there is going to be conversion into glycogen. So it's not actually wasted at all. When you're in a dietary phase, obviously you are more open to catabolic events, so catabolism. So that's when I try and keep protein highest, just to prevent any sort of catabolism. Also, you get you've mentioned all this before, but higher thermic effect of food. So you're actually burning more calories whilst consuming that protein. So that's going to help during the dieting phase as well. And also it's a very satiating macro, so it keeps you fuller for longer.
Yeah.
Per meal, the issue here is, whenever I send diet plans out to people or clients, they always, quite a lot of the time, they come back to me saying, oh, that's 50 grams of protein per meal, that's too much. But then you look at it and they're getting 11 grams of protein from their oat serving. So are you telling me that 11 grams of protein from oats is muscle building protein? And not really. No. So you want to look at the high biological value protein. So that's from the actual protein source itself. And I think you should be looking at, people always try and they scrape it with 25 grams, because that's supposedly got the 3 grams of leucine, which is going to sort of turn on muscle protein synthesis. But why are people selling themselves short with the least amount of protein they can? Like what? Why stop there? You know, like I normally say about I put it at about 35 per
Sure.
meal,
Sure.
so 30 to 35. Depends. The past few months I have with clients started to look at potentially in the pre-workout meal dropping it down a little bit, just because obviously with the higher protein you're looking at it's going to take a longer to digest. It's going to be a little bit more stressful on your digestive system. So
Sure.
maybe pre-workout you can drop it down a little bit.
Mhm.
But then the rest of the time, especially in your sort of protein and veg meals, I keep it quite high. And then yeah, that was about it really. I think
Yeah.
that was the questions. Yeah.
I'd agree, and I think with Robert is UKDFB 18 champion,
Yeah.
the guy who's asking the question, and I think when you're dieting down as to the depth that Robert was dieting down to,
Yeah, he was lean. Yeah,
he was lean, yeah. The only thing that really is a brief consideration is how much are you taking away from your carbohydrate intake to have your protein significantly high. So when you're in the depths of contest prep, carbohydrates being a predominant fuel for what you're doing in the gym and what you're trying to recover from the gym, I would say that just be mindful of if you're having your protein super duper high and your carbs have to drop super duper low as a result. If your training's really, really good and you're performing, your output is high, just have that consideration there.
I think it does also come into like your lifestyle will then come into consideration. Like, if you're very active, you're going to need to have those carbs in.
I think it's a PT, I'm pretty sure.
I know people don't like talking about the insulin fairy, but if you are sedentary at an office job and you're spiking your blood sugars all day by having carbs throughout the day as opposed to just a protein and fat meal or protein and veg, then it's just not needed. Whereas obviously if you are out manual labor and stuff like that, you can afford to have higher carbs.
Of course.
I would say, like you mentioned, yes, if it's all going to come down to you monitoring your performance. So if it is starting to take a dip because you have taken away carbs at the extent of protein, then maybe do the opposite, take away a little bit of protein. Also, you mentioned as you are dropping body fat and you have got less, and you might be dropping a bit of muscle as well. You've got a bit less muscle, so your sort of ratio will be going down as well. So you might want to take away a little bit there. Basically, what it comes down to really is that I'm almost too bro to drop protein. That is the honest truth. I've always been very bro at heart throughout my whole life.
And it works for you as well.
Yeah.
It works for you.
Because I always just saw protein as building muscle. Basically, and then it's just stuck with me. There's not a lot of science. There is a bit of science behind it, but not really. I think, did you see Andy Chappelle's?
I did, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So that did support somewhat of a higher protein consumption.
Yeah, it did. Although I think his general thesis is that carbohydrates are probably more important.
Yeah, I did see that. That's good.
I think he favours himself, like in his own preps, which are obviously based upon a lot of the research that he's done, is he definitely favours a much lower protein amount than potentially you've run. And I know that he keeps carbohydrates as high as humanly possible.
Yeah, that's the thing. Keep them as high as you can.
Yeah.
Like, I literally just stick protein at the level, and then that doesn't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't change.
Yeah.
And then alter everything else then.
Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Brad asked about what weaknesses you're aiming to make into strength before you compete again. So obviously you've covered the injury itself, but what actual body parts are you looking to try and bring up?
Well, first of all, I'd like to just be able to feel a muscle contract at the moment, so we'll focus on that. I think always I'm on the pursuit of more delt and chest, always. In my so before 2017, the off season before then, I brought them up a lot, to be fair. Somehow I was running a push, pull, push legs split. So I was doing push every other day, and that was with no rest days at all.
Oh Jesus,
Like
dude.
I want to disclaim here, I have very good recover capabilities,
Yeah.
like very good. So obviously it wasn't the same session, but they were push sessions. So I brought them up a lot, and I need to continue to, because everyone knows first impressions of the front relaxed, and mine look pretty poor based on the fact that I have quite wide hips and narrow sort of shoulders, and my chest, especially upper chest, just doesn't pop really. So it just makes the front relaxed not very impressive whatsoever. I'm just quite grateful I got a decent set of legs, so it sort of takes away from my poor upper body. But they definitely came up when I put a lot of focus on them. It's a lot more to do with just like execution, because for years I couldn't feel a side raise at all. So, but that was all down to the whole postural thing that I'm suffering from now. So yeah, definitely shoulders and chest once I get around to it. For now, I'm just focusing on everything really. I'd even say that at the moment my legs are really winding me up because I'm not happy with them at the moment. For the past couple of like month, for some reason my left teardrop has just disappeared and it's getting to me. But because they're my pride and joy. When they start going, it's game over. But no, it's alright. Like, everything is improving. But yeah, I'd say focus on more chest and shoulders then.
Yeah. Understood. Do you ever have days or even weeks where you just feel lethargic?
Try 3 years. In all honesty, no, I have quite a bad mentality. It's not bad because it's worked for me, but during prep, I used to, if I felt good, I'd be like, right, something's wrong here. You gotta either like up your expenditure or spend longer in the gym. And I would purposely seek sort of feeling bad. And I definitely didn't get over it between the 2016 season and 2017. So when I bridged between those two, I still felt dog shit going into 2017. So I hadn't dug myself out of the hole at all. And then I only started coming out of it really the start of summer last year was when I started to feel all right. Because, I dug myself into a big hole, and coming out of it, I didn't really, I didn't have a massive jump in calories really either. Coming straight out of it, I did it fairly progressively. So, and then how do you deal with it? I'd say embrace it, to be honest. I used to quite enjoy feeling awful because I knew it was working. Because if you're feeling bad, it's because your brain is getting starved of glycogen because it's getting pulled to elsewhere. And you're tapping into those energy stores. Fat's going, like your fat is going down because your joints are feeling bad now as well. Sitting down hurts. So I'd say embrace it because it's working. Essentially. So embrace the suck, as it's known.
Yeah. I agree, to be honest. Like, obviously in an off season as well, I've discussed it quite a few times in the sense that you are meant to feel fatigued. You're trying to force an adaptation that's not your body's not wanting to do. It's the same in a prep. Like, you're trying to bring down body fat to a point at which your body's not going to be comfortable. Like, so expecting to feel good is like wrong because you're not going to feel good. There are going to be days in which you're like, and Jack said very rightly there are going to be days where you feel like, wow, why do I feel good today? I had plenty of days like that during prep. I was like, why the hell am I feeling like randomly good here? Because I usually felt like shit, obviously, towards the end. But, just basically, like Jack said, take it for what it is and keep pushing through days of feeling lethargic. But if you feel like fucked all the time and you're in an off season, maybe you need to reassess something there in terms of the way that you're training or the way that you're handling your food and stress and sleep.
It'll depend what the sort of fucked is.
Yeah,
so
because there's levels.
Yeah, it's like if it's just like you're aching, your muscles are sore, that's what you want.
Yeah.
But if it's maybe like a psychological drainage or slowness upstairs, then maybe that's something to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Also like hormonally and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. If you have huge dips.
Yeah. So you might need to look at getting other tests done then, stuff like that, blood work. So.
Sure. Agreed. Someone asked, when are you moving to BRUM?
Oh. Well, all things. So I've got my place in the uni.
Epic.
On a condition that I have to obtain 5 additional qualifications in different sports.
Okay.
So for those that don't know, I'm looking to become a PE teacher, and it's a secondary education postgraduate degree. So they want me to get experience in 5 other sports. One of them has to be dancing.
Wow.
So I don't have to do a course in it. They've just said they want me to experience it. So I'm booking into Swansea's salsa class today. Yeah, mate. Can you imagine? I'll try and get that on Instagram. I'll try.
Please.
So I need to do a bit of salsa. I'm going to try and scrape by, so I reckon about 2 or 3 classes at most. And then I need to get them in a couple of other sports, which I'm sorting out. And then I've got my place then. So I should be... Course starts in September, I believe.
Okay.
So hopefully maybe end of July.
Nice,
August
cool.
Time. Hopefully, because hopefully I can catch you as well.
I hope so, man.
Yeah,
I hope so. I wish you were here earlier, but
either way, mate, I'll be close to you anyway. Then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'll still be close.
And to be honest, I love it up there. Every time I've gone up there, I've loved it. I know there's quite a lot of people I know up there as well. Gym wise, perfect. So yeah, looking forward to it. So fingers crossed, I can pull the salsa out. So.
Yes. Salsa top set. All right, cool. Let's move to Christian's question, who was very excited for this podcast. So, double hey to Christian. Biggest challenge for you, mindset-wise, this past year? What's been the biggest thing? So he probably means 2018 as opposed to 19, because we only had 2 months of this one.
Yeah. Obviously going to shows with you and stuff, that was quite, not a struggle, but I always want to be back up there.
Yeah, it was a struggle for me as well, to be fair.
Yeah, it probably helped me quite a lot being with you, knowing that you wanted to be there as well, being up there. But because I'm bad, whenever I go to shows, I always look at them and think, oh, would I beat them? But that's just the ego taking over there. So the biggest struggle is definitely I still put everything in day out, and at the moment I can't reap the full rewards of it. Don't get me wrong, the only reason why I've managed to stay somewhat respectable is because I'm so meticulous about it. I hate to think what I'd look like if I didn't. But I know, it's just making it easier for me once I do get everything sorted to transition. It's just going to be exactly the same. So yeah, the hardest thing is still doing everything, and not reaping the rewards that I should get from it. Like getting up early doors, or spending 4 hours cooking if I'm away for like a day, stuff like that. But to be honest, it never even comes across my mind that it's an issue. I just get it done. So that, I wouldn't even call it a struggle. It's just not seeing myself lose muscle or whatever while still giving everything. That's sort of the struggle.
Yeah.
But then again, whinging about it and crying about it ain't gonna do anything, is it? So I've just got to carry on doing what I'm doing, and try and get on top of it. Really, to be honest, if you watch my podcast with you in 2017, I was probably saying the same things.
Yeah.
But no, it is getting better. So it's just taking.
It's not a quick fix, is it, mate?
That's what I say. It's a long process.
Yeah.
But people say, "Oh, it's taking you a long time." Well, yeah, I had it for like 6 years and just didn't really know about. I knew something was wrong, but I just didn't get it sorted because it wasn't a massive issue. But there's always been something wrong. So if it's taken me 6 years to mess it up, how I don't know how long it's going to take to fix it, really. So
yeah, for sure. Cool. So that's Christian's questions answered. We'll move on. So there was a couple about like client sheets and spreadsheets and things like that, and I guess I kind of word it. So Rory basically asked about sort of how do you create your client spreadsheets? What do you use to sort of use and track client data? Because I think this would be refreshing for people to hear, because I know that you're quite different to the way that I do things, and you're more sort of basic setup, which I think can still work fantastically.
Yeah.
But how do you tend to sort of create sheets? What do you do in terms of like having your clients check in and things like that? What sort of process do you work with clients?
Okay. To be honest, I know you mentioned the difference between me and you and stuff like that. Recently, I've had a fair few more clients come in.
Great.
I
Nice.
have actually looked to, and probably am going to shift towards a few more things that you do yourself.
Nice, cool.
So the screencast, so the recording.
And that'd be great for you, mate.
And also the Google Sheets. I'm probably going to look to implement both of those.
Just makes it easier.
Because it does make it a lot easier.
Does.
When I only had a few, we could just ping things back and forth easy enough on email, and it was no issues. But I've had a few more come online now. So
yeah, I bet you have, man.
And it feels nice as well to have a bit more of a professionalism about it as well. It does look a lot more professional. Don't get me wrong. When I did my masters, we had to do this coursework on this crazy Excel spreadsheet where everything was linked, everything was hyperlinked. So I have the capabilities of doing all that, but it just fried my head a bit when I did all that. So no, I'm definitely going to look to. At the moment, it's simply Excel spreadsheet with your diet on one page, and then on the next page it's just your pictures with your weight, and then the macros you're on that week. And then just assess, because I think a lot of people do overcomplicate it.
Oh, for sure.
I know you think they do as well. Just I know you can't talk about yourself really when you're talking about coaching others, but I've got inside out peeled just going back and forth with a coach. I might not hear from him from a couple of days really, and he'd just say, right, change this or change that, done. Drop.
That's all you need, essentially.
Take a little bit from there, add there, done. Like but at the start I almost found myself changing things to keep people happy, just so they had something to change. And the people that you're doing that for aren't really cut out for it. So it's just the ones that know what needs to be done and that are going to be in it for the long run. If you don't give them an update for 2 weeks, as in you don't change anything, they're happy with that because they know it's working, so they don't need to change it.
Sure.
So yeah, and then I am going to look to, because before I was a lot more diet focused and didn't do an awful lot of training programs.
Okay.
But now I am doing a bit more, so I'm going to look to with the Google Sheets, so I can actually, because at the moment I send it over to them and I just say, right, as long as you're progressing in those, we're good.
Yeah.
If there are things that start to stall or not progressing or not feeling too good, let me know, and we'll talk about either dropping volume or adding in a different exercise. But that is very basic now. So at the moment, because that would require them to tell me that. Whereas if I use the sheets like yourself, I can objectively see that.
Yeah.
Because they might not even realize it, maybe.
Yeah,
So
I find that a lot.
That's why I'm going to shift towards that, so I can pick up on these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am progressing with it a little bit more. Just because, yeah, like you said, I want to make a little bit more progression with it, and I do look up to people like you.
Oh, thank you, man.
See the work that you're doing. So yeah.
Yeah, and as you grow, you just make it more and more efficient. And I think the other answer to this question is just like, what we were talking about there is the sense that you can still be a fantastic coach, even with a very basic check-in principle. Yeah. As long as you're communicating with your clients and you're treating them well, you're going to get results. So don't put so much pressure on yourself to create these fancy, sort of super sexy looking sheets when they're only used as a tool to get the progress out of your clients, which you can through just what you say to them and how you coach them. So make sure that that's the fundamental priority. So you asked quite a few questions. I'm going to take someone else's because just to make it fair, because otherwise we'll run out of time. So this is a good question from Tom Hutchinson. So he asks, what are both your takes on off-season cardio? Jack Thorburn hammers it, whilst every day AJ aims for under 5,000 steps.
Right. Let's be right. Hammering it is a slight understatement. Like sometimes people message me because I put everything on Instagram, obviously. Like, oh, where was your coffee? Where was your cardio this morning? I'm like, I only do it 4 times a week. Like, chill out.
Where was your coffee?
But
dear.
There's a few reasons why I do it. One, I quite like the routine of it for a start.
Okay.
It does make me feel a bit better about things, just everything, physically and mentally. It's strange. I like doing things that other people aren't doing. I don't know why.
Sure.
Maybe that's a bit of an ego thing. I don't know.
Okay.
I like to feel somewhat physically fit. I used to be very fit, and I don't want to see that deteriorate.
Yeah.
I also don't really do a lot during the day, like physically, apart from the gym, obviously.
Of course.
But if I'm teaching in school, unless it's PE, which I'm not, because I do supply work at the moment, it's not always PE. Quite a lot of the time, it's more classroom based. So I'm sat down for a lot of the day in that regard.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, and I don't go out for walks. If you saw my step count, it would be in the gutter.
Yeah.
So if I didn't get that for 4 sessions in a week, my expenditure throughout the week, apart from training, would be awful. So that's why I keep it in. It also lets me eat a bit more. I personally think you're putting yourself in a lot more of an anabolic situation or an environment if you do your cardio first thing, which allows you to eat more throughout the day leading up to your session, around your session, for example. I feel you're a lot better doing that as opposed to not doing it and then not being able to eat the amounts. I don't want to reference him all the time, but Hollingshead is pushing it a lot this off season as well.
Sure.
And he's looking absolutely fantastic. Not that you can call it much of an off season for him because he's stayed so lean, really. But he's made massive. He has made progress in that regard. So, and ultimately, just do what's working for you. If it's taken away from your training, if it's taken away from other aspects, I'm realistic. If I had any other commitments in sort of like a relationship or kids, anything like that, I probably wouldn't get away with it really. But for now I can. So, and also the reasoning behind me keeping it in years ago was when I was in off season, when contest prep came around, I wouldn't want this massive change of suddenly getting up early and doing cardio and blowing out my ass. So I kept it in an off season because then it would just be the norm.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be a struggle for me to get up in the mornings. So
Sure.
that's why I kept it in,
Yeah.
and it's sort of part of a routine now, really. So that's my opinion. What's
Yeah.
Morris's?
Yeah, no, I think I see your point of view. I agree with a lot of your points in regards to keeping some cardiovascular fitness. I certainly have times in which I think I'm not so fit here, so I do agree with that. I think the issue for me is that the interference effect would be too great. I'd see a detriment effect on my training sessions. I mean, I see a detriment effect on my training sessions even if I do too much steps. So thinking of adding in cardiovascular work on top of
now as well. So
uh, keeping cardiovascular work on top of that, I just don't. I just don't think that I'd be able to get away with it and see more of a pro than a con.
Yeah.
So my cost benefit analysis is more on the side of it being too much of a cost than a benefit. And then, like outside of that, I think that I want to have some adaptations that I want to actually occur at the start of prep in terms of just getting fitter. Because I don't want to go into prep being really fit. Because that's going to be an issue with regards to getting my heart rate into a point to burn enough calories to make the cardio efficient. Because I don't want to be ending up doing hours of cardio. I mean, I do what I have to do to get lean, but if I can make that process of adding in cardio more beneficial, then I'd rather I know it sounds ridiculous, but get a little bit unfit so that I can get fit. It's like getting your calories up in an off season so that you can start to bring them down. That's my sort of thought process there.
When you were prepping, you were cardio king, really, though, were you? You were
not massively. I mean, if you look at the way I was doing half of my steps towards the end, it was kind of cardio king as well, because I was hammering the treadmill at quite a savage incline, quite a savage pace, and also going out for power walks to get my steps in. So whilst it might not be deemed as like full blown CV, it was definitely enough to challenge myself. I'd like always aim to like beat a time and things like that. So for me it was. But there was a period of time where I was hammering the stairs. But the stairs definitely
took a lot away from you, though, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean the thing is for me, like what I saw is that there was definitely a detriment in my leg performance, so my training in legs. But I wish I kind of kept them in and did less steps and equated the same amount of caloric burn from slightly less sessions on the stairs, because I found that towards the end of prep, when I was doing super high steps and no real stairs, my legs were just fading massively because I was just on my feet too much, and that also took away from leg training. So I think whatever happens, you're going to take away from your leg training at some point. Yeah. This is more so moving into prep discussion, but it's beneficial for people. So yeah, I mean, I'd meet the balance in terms of, you know, getting the heart rate up as much as possible versus the interference effect on your sessions, and just try and balance that as much as you can.
Then again, that also links into me mentioning earlier about my ability to recover. It's high, so that's why I could get away with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone. So
Sure. Okay. Cool. So we'll take one more question, and then we'll wrap things up as we're almost at an hour. Let me have a look. See what the best is. That's a bit of a distance.
Choose wisely.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a good one. How has your training changed over the years, and what sort of has led you to your current setup of training?
Pretty good. One thing that's always stayed the same is that I absolutely love training.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the main thing that's going to get results out of you, really, is your passion for it. I probably saw my best results when I was on a bro split, actually. And people would say, it's probably newbie gains, but I was about 2-3 years into training at the time, and it's just because as long as you put 100% effort into your sessions, you're still going to get a lot out of it. Yes, we know now I do a lot more of a higher frequency, and I believe it probably is superior as long as you can recover from it. That's the main thing.
Yep.
The reason why bro splits probably work for people that use them is probably because it's allowing you to recover so well into your next session. So if you found the sort of, because a lot of people will go into this higher frequency now and they'll be under recovered going into their next session. So if you find the balance between going in the higher frequency and still having that high intensity, that's when you can hit the sweet spot. How my training has changed? Not a lot, really. I don't think I've ever left a rep in reserve in my life. No, honestly, like my first year of training, I got picked up by a boy in my college who was a bodybuilder / rugby player at the time.
Yeah.
And he literally just taught me, you go until you can't. Like my first leg session with him, we were squatting and he wouldn't let me stop until I pinned it and dropped it. I can remember we went straight from squats onto the leg press, and I finished the set on leg press, and I said to him, I've never felt anything like this. My legs were literally just couldn't move, and that was my first proper leg session ever. And that's just how I love to train. Like I love failure. I actually couldn't think of anything worse than pulling a rep or a few reps short. I would feel it's just a waste, in my opinion.
Sure.
I know people are going to disagree with me, and there are examples when it's needed.
Uh-huh.
For example, if you're deloading, which I want to mention I've never done in my life. But once again, this is probably linking into my recover capabilities.
Yeah.
You know, I was doing push every other day, and that wasn't leaving reps in reserve. That was drop sets. That's another thing. I don't do an awful lot of that at the moment.
Not a lot of intensity methods.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot more straight sets. I do rest pause. I quite enjoy rest pause. But I haven't been doing an awful lot of drop sets at the moment. I think because when I used to train with all the issues I had before, I would just do whatever I could to try and get somewhat of a pump and a connection. So I would have quite loose form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you all know that. And anyone that followed me from before, my form was quite loose.
Yeah.
But I would do that purely to try and get things to like fire. So in that regards, I've tightened up my form quite a bit. There's still improvements to be made, but I have tightened my form up because I feel that there's a difference between going to failure with loose form when it's more just like systemic failure, so you're just exhausting yourself, as opposed to if you lock something down and the only thing that's exerting force is the desired muscle and you fail that way, that's a lot better way to go about it.
Agreed.
And also it's not going to fry every other sort of part of your body, and mentally as well. It takes a lot out of you mentally, like so I think that's how it's changed a lot now. So I've gone from bro split to more of a higher frequency because I can recover from it, and I quite enjoy it as well. I always feel that if you're lifting heavy on chest, you are going to bring in shoulders, you are bringing triceps, so it seems sensible to do it. And then also my form has tightened up, but at the same time I am in a bit of a rut in regards to my training, so it's hard for me to say whether I'd still be training like that if I was how I could, because I don't think I'll ever slip back into my completely loose form like I did before.
Sure.
But there'll still always be a bit of body language in there. So I think that's probably about it, really.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, makes sense. Cool, awesome. So yeah, I hope this episode has been good for you guys to listen to. I'm sure it has. We Jack's always going in depth on pretty much every question. He's like me, just goes on a nice tangent with things, which is fantastic.
Just so much, see, so.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll get timestamps on this episode, and so you can flick through to any specific question you want to listen to get to again, or ask a specific question on. If you've got any more questions or want clarification on any topic that we discussed, then just put it in the comments section below. Tag us in your Instagram stories as always, and yeah, thanks again, Jack.
Thank you. Just want to say thanks for having me on, and also the amount of good work you're doing at the moment, to dedicate an hour to doing this every week, plus all the other stuff you're doing, plus your clients, honestly, mate, it's very refreshing to see. You're doing great things, so awesome.
Appreciate it. Cool, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak in the next one. See you in a bit.
Thank you. Peace.